All right. All right, Brian. So let's get right into it. I think this question interests everybody, referees or no referees. Why did you start refereeing? Usually, life gets in the way of refereeing. We all know and appreciate those challenges. What really keeps you going? What's in it really for you? How did it begin for you?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, you finish whatever competition career that you have at whatever level that is, and most people go into coaching, kata, or refereeing, and I think more or less for everybody, it's some combination of these things. So, in my case, it was my close friend and mentor Calvin Tarada, who said he was uh, from the neighborhood, the neighboring dojo, and he was always the head referee at our dojo, Seattle dojo, and always, we're always short on referees, and said, "Hey, why don't you do that?" And so I did, and didn't know what that was gonna entail or really what that meant, but he just said, "Here's the rule book, and off you go." Said, come to the Budokan tournament where we'll have an examination, and there it is. So, what keeps me going? Um, I think in a lot of ways it's something like momentum. I mean, as you know, refereeing isn't something that you can do really casually. It's something you are going to do or not, and it's not about us. It's about the athletes. So you have to stay sharp and you have to stay current with, constant updates in rules and tactics and different techniques. So you have to stay on top of it, and you can't have the attitude that you're only going to do it once a year or just when you feel like it. And so, in my case, I ended up enjoying it, and so that sort of momentum. But why to do it in the first place? Um, well, it's besides being recruited and asked, to do something that was needed and useful. It's just a lot of fun. I mean, you can contribute locally. It's something really useful that you can do, and even more than that. And this is very selfish, but it's you have a front row seat to judo, and we all are judo fans and judoka first and foremost, and it's just thrilling and a lot of fun, and at different levels you get to travel the world, meet interesting people, and that's what's in it for me.
That's great. We can, I think, all appreciate that sentiment. We all have our own histories and stories, I'm sorry, that we started refereeing. And, it's really great to be able to resonate with what you're saying and share that experience. Before we continue with questioning, I just wanted to ask our audience to, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat. And we have somebody who will be monitoring the chat for us. And every now and then, I'm hoping we'll have a chance to get to your questions from the audience, and Brian will do his best to answer them. So moving on, talk to us about the process. How did you start from scratch, of which you a little bit touched on? What is it? How did it take you from getting where you are today to being an IGF, where you started from to being an IGF referee, IGFA referee, and now IGF Tour Referee?
All right, I actually have something here. That's a good way to start today. I'm going to share my screen. Would be an opportunity for blackmail for everybody. Uh, this is that tournament that I mentioned. It's the Budokan tournament in 2007. My very first time refereeing. So that's the best picture we've got from then. And yeah, so that's my very first time out. And I'll even take it one step further. One sec here. And share this one, which this is my very first match ever. So enjoy at my expense.
Will do.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. You see my good friend Troy very kindly whispering, "Hey, your fly's undone," or "Your jacket's undone."
I gotta say, you've come a long way.
You mean the ponytail?
That's great.
And off they go. Yeah, it was a good.
Makes me want to go back and look at our first matches. Wish I had them too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, but to answer your question, so it started with that, and it might often it's the case that you start in the dojo or whatever. But my first real one was really at that Budokan dojo where you took the or Budokan tournament and you took the exam and you get your regional license. So, can you see the screen now? These two attractive folks. Can you see?
We see the screen, absolutely. We see
Okay.
our usual suspects.
Yeah. So these are my close friends and mentors who have been, with me 100% from the very beginning. They were there at that first event. They were the evaluators, and they're of course our local referees and judo senseis. And so they guide us along the way. And the way it starts, I mean, the question was like, how do you go from scratch? And so you start with, mentors like Sensei Calvin and Sensei Barbara. And also, of course, this is my Sensei Karen at the dojo, who's not a referee, but was really my first sensei in every sense of the word. And everything I know about judo is really, and just about being a decent person really, really largely comes from her. So having, senseis is the way to start. Here's also the late Mr. Yamada, who was the sensei at our dojo and informed a lot of that too, although not necessarily on the refereeing side. Now, before that, my very first jump into refereeing was at the dojos in Japan. So this is Yoshihara Dojo in Japan, and this is when I was a few years younger, and it was just required that we would do refereeing at the dojo during our Shiai Geiko. And then even more so with this is Hishida Sensei where I trained in Nara, and at the high school where I was practicing with this sensei, he would have us all referee, all of the matches, and so without any instruction at all. But there was something, it's kind of a matter of pride to be good at it. It meant that you knew something about judo and that your judo was good if you were good at that. So it was a bit of an inspiration to be good at that. Now, locally, you just keep refereeing matches locally until eventually you take like a national exam, which is something of a written exam. Hopefully pass that, and there are several levels of that. Until finally have an opportunity to take a well, in our case, Sarah, I think you and I were the last of the class who took a C exam, which is the Pan American license, and that was it sort of bridged the gap between a national license and then the international or the continental license from the IGF. And so in our case, we went to exotic Dallas, where we went, I think it was the Junior Olympics back in 2014, and had an exam for a couple of days there. That one, I like this picture. This is kind of shows a lot of the leadership and the people who have been along, for this journey. Crucially, Sensei Chi and Sensei Fukuda, Sensei Estevez, and Sensei David Smith, and Sensei Barbara, and Sensei Shimizu, and Sensei Janet, and Takemoto Sensei, and but all these people coming together along with Sensei Gornero in the center. So he's now the PJC director. And when you finally, once you get to that level, you start to have interactions with him as the referee director for the PJC, and you start to get a different sort of direction and more interaction with him. So this is now that examination. Sorry you were there, of course, and this is Sensei Bobby, who has been instrumental to hundreds of us along the way. and several of our other friends who were testing for their B license as well as C. Now, once you have that, all sorts of opportunities open up. You can travel to Pan America. You can go to some events in Europe, and this is something that's been a nice introduction for several of us here, where we go to the Warsaw Open. Here's some good-looking gentlemen here. Uh, and yeah, and so eventually have an opportunity to take a B exam. So this is the first. This is my international B exam in Mexico.
That
This
was
is
Cancun, right?
yeah, to Cancun. So this is like
Yeah.
moments before I floated off into the stands. Now it really is, as you know, it's a different stage and different level of pressure. I mean, they had fog machines with it, which I think is, like anyone's standard of sophistication, and it just feels like a greater stage. It's more difficult. The level of judo is higher, but you get through it. And I was there taking the exam, my B exam, with Patrick Lowe, who took his C exam there. We get through it, and eventually, after a certain amount of time, you hopefully get a chance to have an A exam for the A license. And in our case, COVID happened, so it was very difficult, and it was sort of put off for a certain amount of time. And still during COVID, it was in October of 21. I had an opportunity to travel to Spain for the A exam, and that's where you see this picture here. So this is what's going on here. There's a big event. Here are Pan American referees who tested there, and our colleagues who all passed. And here's Sensei Takamoto as we get over that hurdle. And there's that. So that's in a nutshell of what it was in my case. Going from scratch to A anyway.
So I gotta say, I feel incredibly proud that I appeared in some of those questions and I was part of your journey. It's absolute joy to see that development, and thank you for sharing this with all of us, and for the aspiring referees to have a glimpse of understanding what it really takes from the scratch to get to that level. So right now you're on tour. Right now you an IGF Tour Referee. I almost want to say IGF employee or an IGF consultant.
Yeah.
Talk to us about IGF workforce. What is this global employer is like? What's the culture like in IGF? What is the organization? How is it structured?
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody is interested to really hear what IGF is and how it works.
Yep. Yeah, let's maybe I'll back up. There's one thing that I actually didn't even mention. That's that process of getting started on the tour, which I think is sort of in between those things. And I'll just quickly mention that because that's part of a mystery to, I think, to most people, and it's still a mystery to me, I must say. I mean, it's like I can talk about my experience in it and make some guesses, but I'm not qualified to say really what goes on behind those decisions. But it is interesting. In that time between like 2001 when I took my exam, then afterwards, just work normally. You do the PJC events and do the national events, and then at one point in this was in September 2022. I got a message in the middle of the night from Mr. Laskow. He's the head referee director of the IJF, and I don't have an ordinary correspondence with him. It's unusual for me to get messages from him, so I was naturally excited. And the message just said, "Are you available to do the IPSA, the visually impaired event for a Pan American event in Edmonton in I think it was December?" And this is really exciting. So he offered me this opportunity, and I instantly my heart sunk, because my thinking at the time was that I had to have some special qualification to do that. I thought that you had to have an IPSA license to do it. And I didn't have that. I had done, national events, or just, the matches at national events and locally, but not officially. And I didn't, take any particular course or take any exam. So I felt that I was unqualified. And in the middle of the night, I wanted to give him an answer. So I, unfortunately, I wrote back like an idiot and said, "Thank you, Sensei, for the opportunity. Unfortunately, the invitation's wasted on me because I don't have the qualification."
I
And
can't believe you did
I know,
that.
now it seems insane. It seems crazy, but that's what I did, and I just felt like, okay, well, now if I've just lost this opportunity because I didn't do things in the right order or something. But that's it. I did it to myself. And so at like 5 in the morning, I got another message that says, from Mr. Laskow, saying, "I'll call you in 5 minutes." And so he called and said, something to the effect of, "Look, uh, my understanding after the conversation was, okay, of course he's the boss. He knows what licenses I have and don't have. Him asking me to do this was to say that the A license, the international license, is an extension of the or sorry, the IPSA license could be considered an extension of the A license, and will train you on the procedures and protocols." But what he wanted was for me to, to go do the Pan American IPSA championships. And if I didn't completely screw it up, then we'll consider giving me a chance to do one event on the tour in 2023. So this was exciting to hear. I didn't realize that was the direction it was going. We said, we like to, that's the direction we want to go. So if you're available, then, and so yes, of course I'm available. And so then that was set. And then I think it was a couple of days later, I got another message from him saying, "Are you available um, um, to attend the Grand Slam in Tel Aviv in early 2023?" And instantly, yes. So I didn't make that mistake again.
You
Yeah.
didn't tell him that you weren't qualified?
Nope. Yeah. Even if I wasn't qualified, the answer is yes, as I learned. So that's what happened. And I went to, I think I even have a photo of that. So this was the Pan American Championships in Edmonton. This is
Great.
fearless leader, Dr. Berliner, who is also our IPSA expert. And so he, showed all of us. It was new to many of us in this group, the IPSA procedures and protocols, and he helped us from the very beginning how to do all of that. So finally, you have to do the IGF Academy. And so this is like, as a lot of you know, it's this week-long brutal process of going through all the techniques and all this. And so went and did that also early in the practical part, which I had already completed the online part. Did the practical part in January, just in time for the event in Tel Aviv, and that was that. So I think I dodged your question, which was actually something else.
No, that's fine.
Um,
I just, I
uh,
wanted to actually, this is a
yeah,
very good segue into what
yeah,
I really asked.
yeah.
Talk to
So
us about
yeah,
IGF as an employee,
yeah. Um, so
employer.
yeah, um, it's my first impressions. Maybe I'll keep that photo up because it's interesting. Yeah. So this was the now a brand new stage. This is we are beyond smoke machines now. This is really just a different level of professionalism on every level, and you feel it as soon as you land at the airport. And this is my first one was Tel Aviv, but everything, every little detail that you can imagine is just run by somebody who makes that their job. And am I sharing a screen right now? I'm sorry.
Not yet. You shared and it's no longer
Okay.
sharing.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna share.
Technology gets in the way of refereeing too sometimes.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. Do you see a?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a
Yeah. So,
beautiful picture.
yeah. So this one isn't Tel Aviv. This is in Kazakhstan. But the idea is, you just walk in and it's a stadium now that maybe seats 10,000 or 20,000 people, and any detail that you would consider, there's someone behind it. There is a and there's some professional, but like in a lot of cases, like teams of professionals who are, behind making everything work the way it does. There's the obvious stuff like here there's Sheldon and Neil Adams who do, of course, the commentary. This is the IGF doctor. This is Georgie, who's always in charge of, whenever you hear anyone being announced, this is him, and he not only does that, but he is mixing the music and any number of other things that you don't really consider but you zoom in and you find that every detail is run by someone. I mean, you have the camera crews here, and including this huge crane during the final block at least. And there's someone operating that, and there are any number of other cameras who are doing that. The graphics on the screen, it's all run by a huge team. I mean, there's a van outside, and you think it's like a food truck, but it's not. It's like a bus full of media professionals who are all on screens and editing in real time. And there's a director who's sending instructions to the person on the crane and saying we need this or need that, and it's all done seamlessly so that you can see it live. It's really amazing. So that's as far as the culture, I mean, it's everyone's professional, but it's also fun. I mean, people are quick, they're clever, and they have a sense of humor. And on the referee side, everyone was always very warm and welcoming and giving good advice, and I'm grateful for that.
Great. This is very exciting. This is very interesting, seeing some of the behind the scenes workings of these huge events, and knowing that you're right there representing us. It's great to know that our friend is there. How do you fit in? What is the process? How do you get, I don't know, how do you get selected, evaluated, ranked? Do you get training? Do they educate you on certain, do you go to seminars that are for referees of your caliber? How does it work?
Yeah. So this is some of this is a mystery too. So I'll try not to overstate what I can say with confidence, and some of it is just speculation. I can say that there are usually, at least at this point, around 50 to 55 referees who are rostered on the IGF tour, and so the people who are on that list went through something like I described before. Getting their A license and then being vetted in ways that are aren't obvious, but certainly vetted. I mean, they all the people on the list before they had that opportunity, they had been seen in numerous continental events and so forth, and so then they're on the list. And I think for the events like the Grand Prix, the Grand Slams, World Championships, and of course the Olympics, and in other events of similar level, they sort of divide the force up so that not everyone has to travel 3 times a month. You can do it every couple of months. And it seems that there's a balance of like the veteran referees who have been at it for a long time, and those who are like myself, who are newer and will need some direction. Once you're selected, the process is something like what I mentioned before, where you sort of receive just a question about your availability, which is, are you available for this one? And I think the answer must be yes. You have to say yes. And some months later, this is well in advance. In my experience, it was several months prior to whatever event was being asked about. And several months later, there's a formal invitation and nomination, which comes in the form of an email to me. And it just says, you've been formally nominated. Please, confirm your availability. Make sure you click yes, and the no and not no, which is right next to it, dangerously. But separately, essentially the same email goes to the National Federation president, in this case, our CEO, Keith Bryan at USA Judo, who also has to say, yes, we approve this person to go. After that, you receive your flight arrangements from the IGF travel director in Hungary, and various other documents, specifically related to the event, regarding logistics about hotels and arrival and departure information, stuff like that. The evaluation you asked about, I think, for each event you're evaluated, for each day you're evaluated by at least the supervisors who are supervising the match, and they give you some number between 0 and 10, but actually somewhere between like 7 and 9. And those numbers mean something specific to the bosses, and they, of course, higher is better, and they're in increments of 0.5 each. So if you do very well with few mistakes, then you might get a higher one, and if you make some mistakes, then you get a lower one. To make a critical mistake, and you might get the lowest one. But it's not only based on how well you score things, but also how well you handle unusual situations and difficult situations that are not common and things like that. And so I think the average of whatever, usually 3 days for like a Grand Prix or Grand Slam, that turns into a point, like a score for that event, and that's your score for the event, which is in turn averaged for your aggregate score as a referee on the roster. Was there another part of that? I'm not sure if there was.
Yeah. How do you train for this?
Yeah.
Do you look? Do they explain the mistakes? Do they
Yeah.
provide you constructive feedback? Do you take no? How do you progress through improvement?
Yeah. For each event to start, there is always a referee meeting, which isn't just sitting down and talking about judo, but it's actually all of the referees and the referee supervisors and the head referee directors, as well as some local referees or coaches, and a few special guests come, and they're all in judo gis, and they're all ready to work out and do some judo. And so it's not doing randori or having a really serious workout, but working together to come to a consensus about difficult, some idea that's difficult in judo at this moment, something that may have been difficult for people, or something new that happened like in the last event, and here we want to clarify, make sure everyone's on the same page. And part of that training is discussing it in theory, but also doing it. So working on certain manners of breaking grips, or certain types of throws or pins or transitions, and the timing of all that, and doing that in in real time with direction from people who have a specific plan for you, really makes a huge difference. This is only for a couple of hours, but it's very useful. Separate from that, of course, there are the referee seminars, which happen. There's several times a year throughout, usually one for each continent. The main one is usually in the beginning of the year in Europe, and this is usually a 2-day thing with 8 or more hours of video and discussion each day. So these are extensive, and usually to go over new rules and interpretations at the beginning of quadrennium, but also updates and tweaks to some of those interpretations in subsequent years.
So it seems pretty structured, and it's very intentional as to the process, how you go through it, how you become better. It's not just go referee and wait until the next event kind of a thing.
For sure, and on your own, there's you can't help, if you're a judo person, just to watch all the judo that you can. I mean, we have amazing access to every event and every match and every mat that and every match that happens on each mat. So we are uncontrollably drawn to, I think, those to watch those, and so you watch them, the new stuff, and I think just being interested in it, you can't help but to also be focused on it. And
great, thank you. That's really comprehensive. Before I go on to the next question, I wanna every now and then I'm going to ask my friend Matt Mildenhall, who is monitoring the chat, to see if
Oh
there
yeah,
are any questions coming through. Do
yeah.
we have any questions in the chat?
We do, sorry, from Roberto, who's in Colombia. Thanks, Roberto. I'll paraphrase the question for everybody's benefit. He thanks you, Saro, and USA Judo for organizing this, and congratulations to Mr. Toth for a job well done. And his question is, if I may, he'd like to ask if you could share your vision on the future changes for competition rules, maybe in terms of what's coming for the next Olympic cycle. And he signs off by wishing you all the best for Paris.
Yeah, thank you, Roberto, and hello, Roberto. It's good to see you, even if it's just your name for today. And I always enjoy crossing paths with you when I can. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Of course, it's on all of our minds, having watched the Olympics, and everyone has an opinion about the rules, especially, those who watch the Olympics are often they're not like us, who are all judo enthusiasts who watch every single match from all of every event throughout the Quadrivium, but people who often, maybe only watch judo at the Olympics, and it's very difficult. The judo at the highest level is going to be highly contested, so a lot of matches are going to end on penalties without a huge difference in ability, which is often what results and yields these dynamic techniques and like highlight reels. You don't have those quite as frequently at the highest level, just because everyone is peaking in terms of their performance and they know each other. They don't want to lose at any cost, so they're going to fight more conservatively, and then they, sometimes they have special secret techniques they're going to bust out just for this event, and so everything's weird in ways that it isn't necessarily on the regular tour events, even with the same people. And so after, not everyone here might be aware that after each Olympic cycle, they consider, how to make it more interesting. What do we do to make sure that the athletes are given every opportunity to do their judo, while at the same time keeping it interesting as for the spectators on every level, whether it's just judo enthusiasts, for the coaches, for the fans, or just people who only watch it at the Olympics. And this is a near impossible task, because no matter what rule you implement, the players and coaches are always going to innovate and come up with ways to fight right on the margins of those rules, as they should, to gain every possible advantage. Something that Mr. Garnero, the way he put it years ago, was if you give the players a 4x4 tatami area, if you give them an 8x8 tatami area, a 10x10 area, if you give them a football field to fight in, the players will always go straight to the edge, and they will fight right on the edge of both figuratively and literally of the rules, and they have to gain every advantage because their opponents are doing that. And it's our job as referees to keep up with that and be able to recognize it. The question was, what I envision these changes to be? I spent a lot of time coming to this rather boring conclusion that I have no idea. I am not part of those conversations, so I can only speculate along with everyone else. Something I can say for certain is that it will be done with the motivation that has motivated any changes so far, which is absolutely about the athletes and letting them do judo in a positive way. And we'll see what that looks like. I don't know what that'll look like, but I've heard some interesting suggestions. If I might suggest, if I might share a couple of them that I've heard. These are just suggestions from.
So for the record, this is what rumors, yeah?
Yeah, and well, you'll hear it, and there won't be any question about this. So,
okay.
So the more humorous one that I heard was from our own Sensei Pepper at the dojo. Sorry to embarrass him, but he said, here's what we need to do. We need to give the athletes on the judogi another sleeve. So we give the players something else to grab onto, and then we'll have no trouble. So I thought this was first of all, hilarious and ridiculous, but
I think so. It is
but
hilarious.
but it grew on me too, and thought, okay, well, maybe they're like handles or something interesting. We could just, of course, it's all just like, silly thing to think about. But I'm sorry, Roberto, I don't have any real answer because I don't have, any inside information. And I look forward to hearing any about any, imminent changes along with you.
Thank you, Brian, answering. This is a really challenging question. I think this is on everybody's mind. Everybody's speculating. The third sleeve, I think, will be exciting to see how that will change judo, not just refereeing.
Yeah.
Look,
Well, that's not to see.
hearing what you're saying, I mean, we all know this, right? But for those who haven't gone to the IGF A level, especially who are on the road to there and further, hopefully, it's very demanding. I mean, it's very exciting, but it's hugely demanding, right? How do you balance the demands of the IGF level with your work, with the family? How are you always ready when they come upon you? How do you do this?
Yeah.
And what would you recommend our younger aspiring referees how to handle that?
Yeah. So this is one of the harder parts of it. I'm really lucky. I mean, I have a job that allows this. For those who don't know, I have a small business that I run that allows me some flexibility. I understand that's not a luxury that everyone has, and so that does make it difficult if you have to, ask for time off, and if you're at the mercy of someone who decides those things for you, I can imagine is difficult. Is very difficult. I'm fortunate in that way. We're also fortunate in that I don't know how it was prior to a couple of years ago, but I understand that it was a little different than it is now. Now the case is that they do give you quite a bit of advance notice. I think there are probably exceptions, but in my case, it has been, a couple of months in advance at least, where you get the first message saying, "Are you available for this?" And my experience has been, if they ask you if you're available, it's usually that means that and you say yes, then they're probably going to ask you for it. So once I receive that, then there's plenty of time. There is, in my case, plenty of time to plan for it. They also have said explicitly to the referee corps that once the calendar is out for, the calendar year, then look at it closely. And if there's some event that you have to go to, they care that you maintain your personal lives, and that if you have an anniversary, if you have, uh, if it's your kid's birthday or some other event that that you have to go to, you can tell them in advance that I'm sorry, I won't be available for this particular one, and they just won't invite you to that one. Conversely, if you don't do that, it seems like it would be a problem to not do that, but then tell them later that you have, some conflict. I think that they expect you to let them know in advance, but I think that that's fair. I think you need to be available, but they give you some flexibility in that you can still have your own life. Your recommendation question. This is difficult because everyone's situation is different in their professional lives and their personal lives, and I can say it's probably something that applies to everyone. Is you just have to keep your priorities in line, with your family and your work, and you have to have a balance. And this is something that Sensei Kelvin has always, taught me, but also has, shown by example. Just having a balance in your life with your spouse, if that's the case, or in your kids and your job. And if you don't have that, then nothing else will work. And you can't be, a referee if that stuff isn't in order. And it's not for everyone. And I think that's something that maybe that I would say as a recommendation is, there is value in being a referee at any level, whether it's a local level or national level, or if you have a chance and the opportunity and the wherewithal and the ability, because of your work and other factors, to do international events. Those are all very exciting and very worthwhile to do, but you don't have to, and it's being a certain level is not for everyone. because of some of these factors. And there's no shame in saying, I'm going to be a strong national referee, and that's useful, and it has a real value.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate that candidness in the answer and the reality check, so to say. We have a lot of referees who start for the sake of judo, but often they lose that sense, and the ambition takes over and starts creating negativity in their progression. And I think it's important for all of us to hear that.
It's
and
interesting,
I
you know.
can-
Sorry to interrupt. It's interesting about the limits part of that. You know, it's like we all, like athletes, like everyone has limits, and it's separate from everything we just talked about in terms of like non-judo stuff. But like an athlete, like everyone wants to go and, you know, be Olympic champion, but most people are not going to go be an Olympic champion. And like when you're 10 years old and say, I want to go compete in the Olympics, well, this is a great goal to have. But as a 10-year-old, you don't know what it means to go to like a regional, like junior nationals until you just go. And maybe that's your limit. Maybe that's as far as you're going to go. And there's no shame in that. This is great. You've done, you know, this is a judo career well spent. You just continue on in whatever capacity you can. It's the same as for a referee. I mean, it seems nice, like let's go be an Olympic referee, but you know, when you're a national referee, we don't have any idea what that means. And you go to the next level, and at some point it might be, and this is something that's always still on my mind, it may be the point where you get to some level where the athletes are too fast. You know, the techniques are too sophisticated and the tactics are over your head, where you know, might be doing more harm than good being on the mat. And that is a reality that will, you know, very well can hit anyone, including me. And when it comes, it's not going to be pleasant to accept, but it's something we all have to accept. I mean, it's for the athletes essentially, right? So
yeah. Thank you again. You know, thank you. That I feel like it's a complete insight into like your soul of refereeing, and knowing you for so many years, it just makes me appreciate who you are and how you approach this. I really thank you for that answer. So talk about your last year, like giving all of this that you carry on, and how did your last year come around to put you in a place that you are now representing USA at the Paralympic Games in Paris?
Yeah, so this has been interesting. So for the previous year, 2023, it's my first year on the tour, so I am absolutely a newbie on, you know, relatively speaking, you know, as a rookie referee on the tour. And towards the end of the year, Mr. Laskow let us know that for, you know, the first part of 2023, the selections, you know, for the nominations for events were going to be a little bit different than usual, and they were going to only include those who were being considered for, you know, a position on one of those teams, the Olympic team or the Paralympic team, and said, don't be discouraged. If you're, you know, not selected for events, it doesn't mean that we're through with you. It just means that this is what happens in an Olympic year. So just be prepared for that. That was thoughtful of him, I thought, to let us know what to expect. And my expectation was, I think he said that I first heard that when we were at the Pan American Games in Chile in, I think it was October of last year. And I accepted at that point that, okay, that means that, you know, I won't be doing events for the first part of the year. However, just 2 days later, I think I got a nomination, or at least that first question: are you available for you know, Paris Grand Slam and the Lisbon Grand Prix? So this is great. So it's not a you know, anything set in stone. They're just asking for availability, but it turned out to be the case that they invited me to those, which was a great honor, I think. I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna show something here. Sorry. So just before that, there was the do you see a screen here?
Yes, we
Okay.
do see the screen.
Yeah, so this is the first event of the year, which is the referee rules seminar for referees and coaches, and this was in Győr in Hungary. So this was part of like the European tour that included, for me and for many people, that included this couple-day event in Hungary, followed by a Grand Prix in Lisbon, followed by the Grand Slam in Paris. And so these are great pictures. These are taken by a pro and shared with all of us. But this is the group of, you can see in this one, the head referee directors, along with various other people. There's the vice president of the IGF and many others. So we went to this one, went to Lisbon, and went to Paris, and I am. So what's that? Oh.
Go ahead, Brian. I think there was some glitch. It's all right.
Okay. Yeah. So I ended up. I went to Lisbon, went to Paris, and these were great events for me. Really exciting, especially both of them, but especially Paris Grand Slam is one of the biggest ones in the world. This is really a stadium of 20,000 people who know about judo and are fans. And there's you see a picture here. This is these are just part of the event, but you can see this is the photo of, I think these are the referees in Paris, and you just know, everyone here knows all of the faces because these are all the very best ones. They're all, but what I mean by best is that they're at the top of the roster, which is available to everybody. And just being included in this group was an honor, but I didn't think I had any real expectation of being included in either of the teams to go to the Olympics or Paralympics. And in any case, I was just happy to go. It was just a great experience, and I loved it. Now, another event that I went to was the Grand Slam in Antalya, which and at that point there was also the IPSA Grand Prix associated with that one. And I don't know, I think it just kind of rubbed off where everyone who's going to these events, we all knew that they were going to one of these events. It was the Olympics or Paralympics. Just in our own minds, we didn't have any inside information, but if you're going to select people, these are the people to select, and with the most experience. And they're for me, I didn't expect to be a part of that, but it sort of rubbed off, hearing everyone else, talk, and it got sort of exciting. In Antalya, they mentioned that the teams were decided. They would let us, let everyone know what those were. And a couple of weeks went by, and no one heard anything. But then I think people started posting on social media, when they received a letter saying, "Congratulations, you've been selected for the Olympics," or whatever. And I didn't get one of those. So I thought, okay, this is about what I expected. I didn't expect to go, so that was it. But on that day, when people started announcing that, I got an email from the IGF travel director that said, "Here are your please confirm your travel arrangements to Georgia, to Tbilisi." And I received that. I thought, this is great. I love getting tickets to Georgia. It's like my favorite thing to get. But I'm not going to Georgia for any particular reason. Except for, I looked at the calendar and it showed, okay, here's the IPSA event there. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe this is how they tell you. Maybe they're sending the Paralympic crew there. And sure enough, I got a letter later in the day saying, yes, congratulations, you've been selected. And then there are 16 who go to the Olympics, and then there are 12 of us who are here. Can you see this?
Yeah.
This is the group. This is actually in Georgia, the last event we did as a whole group, and just people from all around the world. These are our friends and colleagues who've been selected for that group. And I was lucky. At this point, we all knew when we went to Georgia that we went there. And then we, in addition to the IPSA event, we talked logistics about, the Paralympics, and we got sized up by a tailor to, for our uniforms and, various other things. So that's what that looked like.
Wow, incredible. So I understand you're flying out on 26th in a couple of days. Good luck. Seeing this group and you in this group, it suddenly makes everything more real. That's not that much real. So I'm sure you're gonna do really great. So being on the front lines of pretty much the best judo in the world, right? And I can imagine how humbling that experience is, but the pressure must be immense. So do you have techniques how you deal with that pressure? Is there a routine day before, day off, when you're off the mat? How do you prep for it? How do you react to things on the mat? Can you talk to us about your techniques if you have?
Yeah, so it's a good observation, just about pressure in general, and that it's true that the pressure is immense. It is really something that has to do with, the presentation is, as I mentioned, as you walk into a stadium, immediately that this is a different level. Also, the athletes, them because they're, very largely well-known athletes on the world tour, and you just know that they have fought very hard to get to where they are. And this is true of everyone on every level, any judoka that fights, but especially because they have reached this highest level, that they, they have, sacrificed their bodies and their finances and their time with their family to get to this stage, and now it is on the referees to give them a fair shot. And this is a huge amount of pressure, right? So people deal with that in different ways. It's important, I think, to be able to turn your focus on and off. During the day, you can't be 100% focused. Throughout the day, you have to have that focus when you're out there, and then find times to relax, whether it's, whether it's chatting with your colleagues or taking a walk, getting some coffee, or any of that. And fortunately, especially when all this is still relatively new to me, there is so much to be curious about, that taking a little walk, like between matches, there is something new.
I would really appreciate everybody in the audience that you put your microphones on mute so we can all hear Brian's voice well. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. But there's always, someone to talk to, and someone has an interesting story of, someone that I didn't know previously about what their role is here. And just being able to talk about that for a moment is a great way to take your mind off what just happened, which is important. For good, whether it's something good that happened or bad that happened, it's good to be able to have, some downtime. I think, I think I do really well under pressure on the day of. I don't really feel it so much. I think before it starts, there's something it's always, the nerves are rather high. I remember in Paris, and this is really a different type of venue than anything else for the Grand Slam. This was the first time of the events that I'd done so far to that point that I was going to be the first one out. And I was going to be the first referee to join the match. And I remember Roberto from Italy, a veteran and true pro, just said maybe she noticed that that I seemed nervous, or maybe she just thought this is what I needed, but I did. And she said, "This is the best place to be. You just go out, don't even think about it, and you get the first one out of the way before you know what happens." And sure enough, that's the way it was. I mean, I was lucky in some respects that it was a relatively easy match that didn't cause any troubles, but in general, on the day of, I think very well under that pressure, and I just enjoy it and have fun. But the issue for me is often not the day of, it's the day before, and just being able to manage nerves and not only the day before the first day, but these events are multiple days long. So each day, if I find that I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm going over something in my mind that happened the day before or that might happen the day after, sometimes that can just keep you up for hours, and you end up with less sleep than you want, and you have to find a way to distract yourself and and find a way to rest and keep your nerves. And this has been a constant challenge for me. I've found some ways to do it. For me, in general, I think it helps to, this is just for me, some small thing, and this is in a very general sense, just to find humor in things. There's,
Always helps.
yeah, if there's something to laugh at, and it helps because my colleagues are all very clever and have, good senses of humor, and you can find something to laugh about. Now, it's difficult to find humor in, for example, if you make a bad call, because it's not just about you, it's about, maybe you cause something that makes the match unpleasant for an athlete just because you saw something in the wrong way or something like that. So it's difficult to find humor in that, but you find something else. And well, to give an example of the time when you can find humor in that, the day after my first day ever on the tour, I was in Tel Aviv, and the second morning I woke up to a message from Kozue, my wife, Kozue, and she sent me a link to a YouTube video that was titled something like the worst referee ever, like the worst referee call ever, or something like
Oh
that.
no.
And sure enough, it was me. And
Oh
so
no.
I was like, okay, it took one full day for me to become internet infamous. But the thing was, I don't know, it was really funny. Well, first of all, it helped because it wasn't necessarily a bad call. It was a difficult call. It wasn't something that I had to really worry about. But I think, I don't know, she knew exactly what I needed, and that I would just find that sort of thing funny. And so it did. So you find a way to laugh, and yeah, I think that for me at least, yeah, that helps.
Yeah, wow, that's a good story, and I think the details that you give could be helpful for anybody. We all need to find our own ways to cope with the pressure, but knowing how you do it on that level, I think is helpful for everyone. So you pretty much get firsthand information
Mm.
about all the nuances, interpretations. Are you encouraged to share those? Do you have a systematic way to bring this experience back home, share with your, growing cadre of referees here in US?
Yeah, there's nothing systematic that I do. I think I should be more diligent about that sort of thing. I think that that would probably go a long way. I mean, our own referees in the U.S. are so diligent on their own to follow, make sure that they follow, every event and all the updates and of the rules and everything. So everyone seems to be pretty well on top of it on their own. At our national events, when I go, fortunate that often I am given a chance to, say if I noticed anything in particular that wouldn't be obvious. And so I do that. And then offline, I have, conversations with you, or it's often with, Sensei Bobby, who is much better at conveying these sorts of messages than I am. And so if we have a chat, then maybe he'll put that into a way that, something that's more meaningful than if I were to, try to, send something out on my own. But
Well, share with us as much as you can.
yeah.
I want to take this opportunity and go back to see if there are any questions coming up in chat. Matt, do we have anything?
Yep, there are two. The first is from Alberto saying, "Hi everybody, congrats to Brian for his selection to the Paralympics, and thanks Sari for organizing this." And Alberto's question is, Brian, do you think that bringing back big tournaments to Pan America will increase the opportunities for Pan Am refs to be part of the world stage? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and hello, Alberto. Good to see you again. I can only see your name, but I hope that you're well. Yeah, this is of crucial importance. It's something that Pan American referees have to confront, along with referees from most continents outside of Europe, is the real difficulty in getting anywhere. I mean, the Earth is big, and the most of the events of the IGF events, and also I should say the continental cups, like the junior and cadet cups, and those most of them happen in Europe. So it's a real advantage to be able to hop on a train or drive a couple of hours and just be at one of these wonderful events. And so the result is that you get more experience and you have, you know, closer access to the you know, the people who make decisions on the rules and what and the interpretations and what the expectations. And so from Pan America, and this is also the case from the other continents, I can speak, you know, as a member of the Pan American Confederation, we have to try extra hard to overcome that difficulty, and that involves, you know, keeping in close contact with you know, with our colleagues who might you know, have, you know, more immediate information, but it often means traveling extensively, you know, across the world. This is difficult. To travel to Europe from South America or even or Central or North America, it's a long trip, and it is not, you know, easy to do. So certainly having more IGF events in Pan America, I am 100% for it. Whatever that takes. You know, I don't have anything to do with those decisions, or, you know, I haven't really given much thought to what that would take. I would love it if we had more opportunities though here.
Yeah, great question, Alberto. And considering 2028 is coming
Yeah.
to, you know, Pan America, I think this topic is on everyone's mind. Brian, thanks for answering that question. I heard we have one more question in the chat, but I'm going to get to it a little later. I want to move on to another question I have in mind right now is the just lighten things up. What's the best call you've ever had on the mat on the tour? Your proudest moment. Tell us about that situation. What did you do well that produced that result?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not sure about, like, it's nice to be on the right side of like a quick throw or like a counter that's squirrely, or like some like complicated newaza situation that you know, you see the right way. So this is all great. It's, you know, the other side of that is unpleasant to be on the wrong side of those things. But
we'll talk about that too. Don't worry.
Oh wait. What I think what feels best is when you can find a place to find really useful as a referee, where you've done something that isn't obvious to everyone, except for maybe because you have a certain vantage point, and that you couldn't have made the call unless you know, were in that position, or because you were thinking about it in a certain way, or something. Like, something that comes to mind, and this is actually from my first event in Tel Aviv, and this has actually nothing to do with refereeing, and that's that it was a match that's between, I believe, Italy and Bulgaria in, I think, the 63 kilogram category. And unfortunately, as happens in judo, there was an injury, and the Bulgarian woman was injured. And, you know, the protocol is you want to ask if they want a doctor, and you don't call a doctor unless, you know, they ask for it. But I could tell that she was injured. I did the perfunctory ask, do you want the doctor? And she shook her head no. But I remembered from something, a conversation I had with somebody from Bulgaria who let me know that Bulgaria is one of those few countries in the world where this means yes. And
oh, wow,
yeah.
that is so
and
funny.
So it was just like just a random thing that, you know, I only knew because of just like a random conversation that I had about this. But I just, you know, I think I was even later than than I should have been in understanding that that meant yes. But once it clicked, like after a second or two, I called the doctor, and, you know, she got the attention she needed. She was okay. But I don't know, it felt good to be useful in this sort of way.
That could have gone so wrong though.
Yeah. So but that's, you know, that has almost nothing to do with refereeing, but kind of one of those like weird situations. And, you know, so, and I think feeling useful, that comes into play, especially during the IPSA matches, where
oh wow, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
quite literally need you to have a match. So, but maybe we'll, you know, talk about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a lot to do with refereeing. It's
Yeah.
how well-rounded you are. It's some people may consider it as a luck or a moment, but knowing that you have that deep reserve in your mind and things come up at the right time in your mind and you react to it, I think it truly is a proudest moment. And I love the way you put it. It's being useful. And that's, when you talk about safety, right? That's why we are there, right?
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
I think it's a great example. It truly is a great example. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to let you get away with it. What was your worst call on the mat on the tour? Your least proud moment? What did you do that yielded that result? And how you handled it? Did you have consequences? How'd you deal with that?
I should know that one was coming. And so I haven't made any bad calls yet. So can we go
Oh,
on to
sure.
yeah. Yeah, no. So yeah, so everyone's gonna make so, I don't even want to call them mistakes. And a lot of times, somebody has a better view, and sometimes, the camera angles and then the supervisors who have access to those have more information and better information that changes, the how we see it and how we evaluate it. And you get a call, changed, and this doesn't feel great on the spot, but once you realize that it's just business. It's part of the machine of getting things right for the players. And as a team, you do it. You're the first line as a referee, and so that happens. And so I'm not so fussed about having like a Wazadi call changed if it's seen another way. This is I would rather get it right the first time, of course, but I'm not too fussed about that part of it. What you have to do is you have to learn, I think, and learn from your mistakes, and to get it right. Once you know what the situation is, you learn, you try to sort of calibrate and adjust. And now, one time I wasn't able to do that at the Paris Grand Slam this year. I had a great 3 days. We had long days. I mean, there were, I think, only 4 of us on each mat, which was unusual. And so we had maybe like close to 20 matches each per day, which is longer than usual. And I was fortunate to have really good involved matches and I seemed to be on top of it in my own view and handling everything well. I think for the 3 days, I think I had 2 calls, actually, scores overturned out of the 3 days, which is good, objectively speaking. Now, both of those happened in one match. And it was a situation where, we recognized like Kawazugake. And the way I saw it was, one player comes in with like a really deep kosotogake, like really wrapping the leg. And as a counter, they turn, and it's not in, but for me, it was the person who's trying to turn. And so I scored this, wazari. And then I thought, okay, this was quick, would have happened. And then it's quickly waved off. So no, that's no score. And then the exact same thing happened, like moments later, like maybe within 30 seconds. And I didn't learn the lesson. I just okay, I'm just going to do that again. And wazari again. And I just saw it wrong both times. And so, I was called over afterwards. And fortunately, this is a nice thing. It's when you need the feedback and when they need you to see the feedback, they'll, either, by a message, they'll send it to you, and sometimes with a video or the picture that shows it, or call you over and say, this is, the way we saw it, and this is the way we need you to see it. And they make no bones about it. This is a mistake, especially doing it twice and just, not having learned from it the first time. You've got to, adjust this. And so, so that's something I'm not, definitely not proud of, that I wasn't able to adjust to in real time. It's something that I think that I can do better as a result of having, messed it up. But even those aren't the worst type of mistakes you can make. I mean, I have been a little bit late in my own view of like seeing, like in like a kansetsu waza, which is like most crucial when someone is doing like an arm lock or a choke, and sometimes it's going to be really difficult, and what you have to look for. You know that you have to keep in mind that uke's arm that's being attacked. You also have to keep in view their other limbs, which they very well might use to tap. And you have to move in a way that's thoughtful, that you can, move around based on what we know about that particular technique and the way that it's likely the players are going to move, so that you're in best position to see that. And sometimes we, we don't get it right, and so we don't move in just the right way to predict that in the right way. And in my case, that's certainly happened. And that's the one that I think probably feels the worst, even though it didn't result in an injury of any kind. But I just know in my own mind that, like, I was predicting it in a certain way, and they moved in another way. It's where I just know that this limb that was, the hand that was tapping, I didn't get around to seeing it until maybe a second later than instantly, which it has to happen instantly. And so,
Right.
so those are the sorts of things that, I mean, even if it doesn't result in an injury, this keeps me up at night, and just, it is, something that that I don't let go of easily. And so, I mean, you have to learn from it, and just not let it ruin, you still have to perform for the athletes for the rest of the day. So you have to get beyond it, but it's difficult, knowing that, you're in this crucial position and you didn't handle it perfectly the way.
Yeah. Brian, I hear both professionalism as well as emotional dedication as you're answering this question.
Oh.
I think this is very important for all of us referees to learn how to manage the two. And I think that type of dedication is incredibly, it's really coming through. So I really appreciate it. We have people like you out there.
Thank you. Sorry, I just thought, this is like talking about kanzetsuwaza and like making mistakes. Those are all pretty heavy topics. The way I, respond to them, I think is kind of heavy. There's something like on the lighter side of that. This isn't necessarily a mistake, but just like a procedural thing that ended up being really funny to me.
Go ahead.
Recently in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro this year, we had the Pan American Oceania Championships, and on the last day of the individual contests, I was able to do the gold medal match between Brazil and Canada in 81 kilograms. And so, Schmidt and Verpo Gutierrez, they're pros and they know each other, and this is going to be an awesome match. Turned out that it was great, really exciting. Now, early on in the match, though, I noticed on the tatami there's a bee, and it's like with a stinger, and this is like, and it's alive. It's like crawling around on the mat.
Oh,
and
no.
So I saw it, and I thought, okay, well, it's you got to pick that up. You got to get this out of here, because it's, they might step on it. Maybe they have an allergy. So mate, and let's pick up the bee. I thought about it, okay, a bee can sting you, but it's just a bee. Well, sure enough, when I went to pick it up, it stung me like my fingers, and
oh no,
it really hurt. Like, it hurt a lot more than I expected. I was like, oh man. And so
the sacrifice you go through.
yeah. So there's this ridiculous video, I mean, you can see, where I'm just like struggling to pick up this thing, and you don't know what it is, and probably in the video, but yeah, it's a bee, and I'm getting stung. And like, after the first time, I'm more hesitant. I mean, I just can't pick it up, and I put it in my pocket, in my jacket pocket.
You put it in your pocket.
I put it in my pocket, yeah. And then we go on. So but I'm stung. So this thing really hurts. And maybe I'm just like wimpier than I knew of myself before, but I was like, man, that hurts. But I can feel the bee crawling around in my pocket. So I smashed it in my pocket. At this point, it's like pure revenge. But okay, so I killed that one.
And this is all while you're refereeing. You already said
yeah. So you can actually see it's not clear why I'm behaving this way.
I'm gonna go find and watch that fight.
Yeah, but okay, but that's not the end of it. So they go to Newaza like a minute later, and sure enough, I see in the corner of my eye there's another bee on the
no.
And so I noticed like a change in my thinking here, right? Like, I learned something about myself, where the first time, it's like you say, you gotta, this is our job. We gotta look out for the athletes. We're gonna do my duty here, and at my own great personal risk, we're gonna pick up this dangerous animal.
Amygdala kicks in.
Yeah. So, but the second time I saw it, like, the mindset was different. I was like, well, maybe they won't see it. But sure enough, Canadian player, he's like, gets up and points to the bee, and up to, I can't tell him it's his bee because he found it, but I picked that one up and put it in my pocket, and I didn't get stung by that one. So you know, I have 2 bee carcasses now in my
You
jacket.
slept them on too.
Yeah, but I mean, the referee, the supervisors, and the bosses, like everyone's got a kick out of it because, like, no, why don't you just call someone to take care of the bee? I mean, you don't have to like pick up live animals. Which later in the day there was a bat flying around in it. If it had been a bat, I think I would have called someone. But I learned that, you know, you can call. It may not, you know, procedural mistake per se, but it's, you know,
So,
you can
so
call someone to help
they're
them.
gonna update SOAR with that procedure.
I think so. So what to do in
What
case
to
of,
do in case of
uh,
animal attack?
deadly animals. This thing was real threat to my
Oh, that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
Truly interesting one. I was gonna ask you about important lessons you you learned overall, but I think that B lesson is one of the important ones, right?
Wear
Um,
protective gloves, maybe. Yeah, like a maybe gardening glove.
I'm getting message from Matt that we have more questions coming up in chat, and I think it's very important that we listen to our audience. Matt, I'm gonna go back to you. What's coming up in chat for us?
Sure. Barbara has a question. Can you comment on the differences between refereeing para athletes versus able-bodied athletes, for example, speed, distance, types of techniques, and how do you shift seamlessly between the two?
Without losing everything.
I don't know.
Yeah. Let's make sure we go on mute in the audience, please. Go ahead, Brian.
This is a great question. Did I hear that was from
Barb Shimizu.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barb, for the question.
Yeah. It's a great question, and very it's there definitely is a transition, and there, you know, the difference in rules and the difference in the way you conduct a match is, of course, the obvious protocols where you escort the athletes out, you meet them at the edge, you bow together. You know, once their respective coaches bring them to you, you bow together, go onto the mat, you have them bow to one another, and then, of course, you have them start with a grip, so they don't, you don't just say hajime because they're all blind to some degree. So you have them start with a grip and go from there. Now, the difference in distances, there is a difference in your spacing, of course, because you have to be close enough, especially for those athletes who are also deaf. You have to be able to tap them on the shoulder to let them know that you're calling mate to stop the match. And sometimes that results in some sort of contact. I mean, you have to judge this carefully so that you can be there in a timely manner without, you know, disturbing them, which is, you know, it really is a balance, and you don't always get it right. Sometimes there is some contact. Generally it's okay. I mean, yeah, but you have to count on that, and you just have to be on top of it, and, you know, always. Now, the greatest, fortunately, you know, over the years, this has been, at least to my understanding, the philosophy of the IPSA judo director Janos Tardos, and then also the head referee directors Henk Plug and Kenichi Shoshida. Their thinking, which I think is wonderful, is that you want to eliminate any unnecessary protocols and rules that get in the way of making IPSA judo, the visually impaired judo, just like the able-bodied judo, and you can do that in ways that they really have implemented, I think, where you just take away you know, unnecessary gestures and you know, contact with the players and time in between this or that procedure, and as a result, you know, it's sort of trimmed down into this thing, which is quite beautiful. It's really, you know, basically, you know, this is the same as the IGF matches, with some crucial differences, of course, but they are very, very similar. And making the transition, yes, it is difficult. Going straight from like a Grand Slam, an IGF Grand Slam, and then doing, you know, the IPSA Grand Prix, let's say 2 days later, or maybe the next day. There's a transition, you have to change mindsets, and hopefully that happens immediately, but sometimes it, you know, you hope it doesn't happen in your own mind as quickly as you'd like, and so that's difficult. I would comment on one final thing, which is a crucial difference between the IGF matches and the IPSA matches, and this is just something, it's not so much to do with the procedures or protocols, but something that's just refreshing, and that's that the relationships you have with the coaches and the players is just different. And you, like I say, you go over and you greet them. You don't greet them per se, but you escort them onto the mat, and then so you do have some contact with them as you're getting off the mat. Often, they will thank you. Sometimes the coaches will thank you. Sometimes they will, shake your hand, and this is okay. This is not something that you would ever see like during an IGF, Grand Prix. It's just a different protocols. And what it highlights to me is something really refreshing, and that is that this is the fundamental relationship we should have, and essentially we do have, between coaches and referees and players, and that we're all really on the same team. We want the same things, essentially. We want the athletes to be able to succeed. And we don't care, of course, as impartial referees, we don't care which one wins, but we care that they have an opportunity to do it. And we want them to be able to shine and be able to do their very best. And it's our job, if we can, to facilitate that, to help that with in ways that referees can do it. And in this relationship, I think, knowing that we're all on the same team and keeping that in mind is really important. And it's just more obvious whereas it's sort of veiled in the IGF matches, where it might feel more adversarial. We are essentially on the same team, and that's just something that is sort of expresses itself in IPSA Judo in its own way.
Wow. Yeah, that's we're going to talk a little more about IPSA as hopefully we have time through the conversation. Barb, thank you for the question. And Brian, I think you kind of delineated how you get to IPSA and how you get to Grand Prix and what the differences really are at the core, at the basic level. And thanks for those little wisdom nuggets that you threw at us. Much appreciated. I always think of, failures fuel success. And, if you're always successful, you're just going to stop progressing, right? So I do want to go back to lessons, right? And what is it that you really hang on to over the year before this Paralympics that you're going to go to? What really stuck with you? What is really your friend, your learned lesson friend that you almost always go to? What helps you through from your failures?
Yeah. I think it's, for me, it's difficult. It's a difficult lesson, but something you learn very quickly, is that there's no hiding from your mistakes. You have to be honest and accept them, of course, in a very literal sense. There are cameras all over the place. There are maybe millions of people watching, and they have access to these videos in perpetuity forever, right? So there is no hiding and saying, well, no, that should have been the way I saw it, or or anything else. If it's seen a different way and you have a mistake that's corrected or something like this, you learn from it and move on, and you try to grow from it. And so I think maybe I've gotten better at that. Just of necessity. It's an attitude I think I like anyway, but being forced into it, and sort of forcing yourself into it is one way to achieve that, I think. I remember after like 3 days of my first event, I remember I called Bobby Donaldson, and as someone who has also experienced tour events, and that and just talked about this sort of thing, where it's just like, now I kind of understand what you're talking about, this immense pressure, and that it's not something that you can simulate in your head. You experience it, and then when it comes down to you're exposed in this obvious way, where you're the first line that everyone sees. And sometimes it's, you know, not for me, it's, you know, if you make a mistake, then everyone knows. So it's, you know, coming to terms with that and, you know, finding the silver lining when you can, and trying to learn from that. I think the same goes for like being honest about like our own abilities as judo people, and you know it's really important for us to be, you know, you know, ongoing judo people and to study and to do judo. And there's this sort of expectation maybe that we're like judo experts and we are, you know, that we know everything, or that we should know everything. I think it's reasonable to expect us to try to continue to learn, but it's also important to recognize, you know, really our own level. I mean, I've never been a real champion. I mean, you won't see me in judo base of being like a continental champion or something. And it would be useless for me to pretend that I am. And it's important to recognize, like, here's what I have done, and here's what, you know, as a result of that accomplishment, or the, you know, or my inadequacies in that area, here's the way to overcome it, and here's what I have to do to
Wow.
you know, study in certain ways, or to talk with coaches and athletes to gain, you know, insights in how certain things go, and being honest with yourself and with others, you know, about all of those things can only, you know, lead to a good result, I think.
Yeah, Brian, thanks. You know, it's for me, I think it's no wonder you'll give that type of an answer. I think it comes down to integrity as a referee, but also it comes out to your ability to be okay with being vulnerable. I think that's really what enables it.
Yeah, that's a good way to
Um,
put it. Being vulnerable in that way is a really good way to put it, Sorrow. I think that's what I'm.
Look, on that note, and you mentioned this a little bit, many referees talk about studying, to study refereeing. Many mentors
Yeah.
tell us study, but they leave it at that. Some of them leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we sometimes choose our own method study. Some don't even study at all. They just rely on experiences from
Yeah.
event to event. How do you study? Is it more just practice? Is there a theory involved? There's just general observation, or is it more structured for you? What does it mean for you to study refereeing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think at different stages of your referee career is going to mean different things. I mean, when we're starting, a lot of it's about procedures and how to, you know, where to go, and like which hand to put up and what to do with it, and all that. And once we sort of learn to ride that bike and have some of those things on autopilot, then we can start to think of the more important stuff, like what's going on in a judo sense, and pay closer attention to that. So I think for a long time it was largely about, like, you know, looking at watching my mentors and the referees that I admired and trying to emulate what they did. And I think I still probably do that, but to more extent now it's more just like, it's just watching the judo and just paying it, which is pleasant. And it's nice to be able to do that. But it's just, you know, being able to consume as much judo as you can, both in person on the mat, to whatever extent you're able to, but also, you know, watching the events live when I'm there, or, you know, on video, you know, in between, and just studying, watching the new techniques, and you know, talking with like you and other groups of, you know, in the US and around the world about, you know, what do you think about this and that, and just, you know, trading ideas, I think is really valuable. In the beginning, you know, it's like, I think something that's Sensei Barbara told me to do is, you know, try practicing in front of a mirror when, you know, to get some of these things, and it feels pretty silly, but I did that for some time, and you just don't realize how much of a clown you look like. Not you, Sorrow, you look great, but I I mean, one can look like a clown, and certainly that was the case for me, until you see yourself on video or on, you know, in the mirror, and you can sort some of that stuff out just by, you know, becoming more aware of your body, and that's not something that necessarily comes naturally to me. Having like like a really nice presence that maybe comes more natural to, more naturally to some other people.
Yeah, thanks. Let's try to move on
Yeah.
to I think there's more coming in the chat. I'm being pinged. Matt, can we go to you again, please?
Sure. Manuel asks, is it difficult to jump from the Pan American level to the World Tour in refereeing?
Yeah, thanks, Manuel. Good to thank you for coming today. And that's a good question. I can say confidently that we are really fortunate here in Pan America, and that our events, the level of judo is exceptional. That the direction we get from our referee directors, but also the continental directors, is always thoughtful, and they're from, uh, people who have incredible experience on the IGF level on the world tour, but also at the Olympics and the very highest level. So we can trust that the information they're giving us is something to be trusted. So we come from Pan American, we go to, let's say, the next stage of an IGF event. I feel it prepares you as well as, in my own limited view, anywhere in the world could. And that's limited because I have only ever been, essentially a Pan American referee. So I don't know what it's like to referee coming from another continent. But I can say I felt very well prepared. And what that also means, though, is that there's a huge learning curve. I mean, everything that we've learned, it really is a different level, and the expectations are different, and you learn quickly. And this is something that, another piece of advice that was given to me, is that you will just, by necessity, you will learn these things quickly, or not. But I think for the most part, people just learn it quickly, and you get better really quickly. But I'm really pleased and grateful to, to our Pan American leadership, as well as, of course, the leadership in the U.S. that gave me this opportunity. And I never felt unprepared. I have always felt like this is, I have what I need to give this a try. And I'm at that point, I'm going to, continue to the point where I can, make it work or not, and that's on me.
Yeah, great question. I guess I think we are lucky here that we do get prepped well.
Yeah.
They may not give us exactly guide instructions 1, 2, 3 ABC, but the breadth and depth of the experiences that they use to prep us,
Yeah.
situate ourselves to be successful there.
Yeah.
So speaking of there, what are the biggest no-nos in behaviors and conducts at the tour, and what would be good effective traits to have that we need to practice?
Yeah, I'm not sure about specific no-nos, as you put it. I think in general, I mean, everyone at our advanced age, we are professionals of some kind, and I think that if you just behave yourself like a decent person, be yourself, be genuine, be reliable, and of course on time, those sorts of things are obvious, and you have to do those things, and it's of course expected very strictly. I don't know about specific things. I mean, something that comes to mind that is, something that I sort of dealt with, and it's a very small thing, but maybe resist the temptation to be starstruck by all these, famous athletes that you've known for, forever, and now you're in charge of officiating them and evaluating their judo, and so there's, you find yourself suddenly, in that position. Just, be confident that that's your job and you're there for a reason. I'm not sure that answers the question. I think as far as
I think it does. Yeah, it does.
In a general sense,
the
I think,
approach.
yeah, I think in general, just, take, one thing to do is to take care of yourself physically and mentally. I mean, these are long days. You're often traveling, especially if you're traveling from outside Europe. It's a long day. You're with jet lag, and yet this socializing is important. You have to be have good relationships with your fellow referees and with the supervisors and the head referee directors, and that, like, building that rapport with them and having those relationships, it translates directly to like an improvement in performance. I mean, which is what you need. I mean, this is for the athletes and what you want. So if you have these relationships where you can comfortably bounce ideas off of, or seek and receive feedback from people that you can consider your friends, then this helps. And the way you do that is often off the mat. So you have time in between days, or between whenever you can, to build those relationships. So doing that is important.
Mhm. Thank you. Barbara talked about IPSA in her question, but I want to take it a little further. You're about to fly to Paris
Yeah.
and be Paralympic referee. Maybe you can share, like, how prepped are you? How do you feel about doing? What emotions you're going through right now? Are you worried about, am I packing right things? Do I remember the procedures? How well will I do? What do I need to think about this particular IPSA concept that I'm challenged with? Can you give us a little more of inside Brian, what's going on there?
Yeah, packing the right stuff is a work in progress, and learning what to take and what you don't need. Well, I mentioned about the referee seminars that we had before the IGF events. You need to bring a judo gi, and things take up luggage, and so you have to be careful about what you pack. And for this one in particular, we're not required to bring a judo gi, so this was one small thing that's off the list. But knowing what to pack and just making sure that you have everything, I am probably gonna wake up with nightmares about having forgotten something important, like a radio or my credential or something like that. And so just checking and double checking that. In general, if it's for fun, Kozo and I have completely different strategies for packing. She is always very well prepared and will start days in advance to make sure that we haven't forgotten anything. And I am more like, okay, if I have 3 hours to pack, it's going to take me 3 hours. But if I have 20 minutes to pack, then I am going to finish everything in 20 minutes. and so I am, when traveling for something as important as the IGF events, I take more time and learn from her example in that respect. That's just for packing, right? So as far as being prepared about rules and procedures, it's reasonable, I think, to always question your own abilities, and that's something that I do every day. So I feel like those who have been in charge of preparing me have done their job, and I think that I trust their confidence that they've put in me, right? So that's I think they do a good job of making it really feel like a team effort,
Right.
and feel supported in the ways that you need. And even if if you need help while you're on the mat, there is a person there with a job who that is to help you and to give you the information you need from a different camera angle or whatever it might be. And so I have, even with my limited experience, I have, I think, enough to trust in that process and the that structure, that I actually feel really good. Your question is,
Good.
do I feel
Yeah,
nervous?
awesome.
I actually don't feel nervous right now, although I expect I probably will once it gets a little closer.
But you're prepped. You're ready.
Yeah, I mean, I take it seriously, as you expect. I mean, you and I talk a lot, so but this is maybe this is off topic a little bit, but it's not just and just at risk of repeating myself over and over again. It's not about us as referees. This is it's about the athletes. Now, another side of it is that not everyone gets to have this great opportunity. I have this opportunity, but the truth is, a lot of it's luck. And I don't mean luck like the IGF is just going around rolling dice and just picking whoever, because they're not. I mean, they are actively vetting people and making sure that they pick people that are good. Now, I feel okay saying that. But the truth is also that there are, many, countless referees who are qualified and who are just excellent referees throughout the world, throughout our country and through Pan America and throughout the world, who could do the job. And they definitely could. And so not everyone gets the opportunity because they just can't pick everyone, right? So certainly there's, untapped talent and people who, I wish could have that opportunity and who don't. But since I have the opportunity, that means that there's somebody else who is not getting the same opportunity, right? And so
Yeah.
you have, in not only for the athletes, but for my colleagues who are not getting the same chance, like this time, I do feel a responsibility to make it count, and that means studying and being prepared and not treating it frivolously like it's a vacation, because it's if I screw up in some way that my completely competent colleagues wouldn't have screwed up, then that is a real tragedy. So this is something that
Right.
is all
Right.
right. So
Yeah. So let's talk about fun stuff.
okay.
I mean, you and I shared so many trips together, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to more and more. But it's not just work, 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 right? And you did mention the vacation word just now.
Yeah.
Not that it's a vacation in any way, but maybe you can talk to us about, the camaraderie, the family of referees. How do you spend time off the mat? What do you do? What do you enjoy? Sure, visiting all these countries must be thrilling, right? So tell us some of your experiences off the mat.
All right, you asked for it.
I can't believe you did that.
Um, all right, so I won't keep this up for long, but this is I thought there might be a good chance to embarrass you a little bit.
Is it the
Yeah,
butterflies on the top?
this is the butterflies. Yeah. So this is
It was a
good.
quite a trip.
Yeah. So this is not an IGF event, but it's an example of us taking a situation that was not ideal and making the most of it. Where we're the three friends are stuck on a hotel room and with a limited space, and you end up having fun anyway. Yeah.
That's not what I meant by my
Yes,
question, but
that's not what you meant. So
that was awesome.
yeah. Have I stopped sharing that one? Let me know if I'm
Yeah,
still
yeah, you did. You don't need
okay.
to share anymore.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's like I mentioned before. Every chance you get to share time, getting to know your colleagues is awesome. I mean, these are incredible people who are thoughtful, and they share. There's something that every one of them has, and this is like they're lifelong judo people for one. They are all incredibly competent. They are compassionate and thoughtful about the athletes, and like so there are a few things that they all have in common. Uh, but that's the only filter that's applied to it, like in the best way, and everything else is different. Like everyone comes from different countries and different, they have different jobs and different family situations, and it's just really exciting to get to know them. And everyone's they are different in every other way, which is just wonderful. So spending time with the group is really a lot of fun for me. So that's one thing. It's nice. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time. Like sometimes there's not time to really enjoy the host country. Like there have been events where I've arrived like early, like 2 or 3 in the morning on the day before, like on the day of the referee seminar, and then you work the next day, and then maybe you leave. Your departing flight is like moments like the day after, like early in the morning after the event. So you don't have time to explore, do anything around the city or anything, which is, then not ideal. But if you do have that time, then having that quality time with colleagues is the best. You mentioned just fun times off the mat. This, something that comes up in my mind, and this was yeah, I think this is in Kazakhstan, in Astana last year at the Grand Slam. On the first day, I was able to do a gold medal match between Kazakhstan, the local judoka, and France. And it was this really long, exciting match. It was a great match. It turned out in the end, the Kazakhstan player won, and everyone's really happy about that. So the crowd's going crazy. Everyone's very happy. It was exciting for me, but the next day during lunch, I was outside, and there was this group of kids from Kazakhstan, like maybe like 9 years old, and they come up and they wanted like my autograph of all things.
Oh,
So
no.
they thought
That's
like
so
I'm the
cool.
referee who officiated their guy. And
That's
so
awesome.
I mean, I'm not the sort of person that is asked for an autograph. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So I'm like signing the belts and their shirts and whatever else. We were just chatting. It's good. We, exchanged names and just, talk to them a little bit. This was a lot of fun. Now, later in the day, we had the final block, and I was able to do a bronze medal match, which it was uneventful. That I don't remember the details, but as I was finishing and walking off the mat, I hear from the stands there's this like group cheering Brian, Brian, and it's these kids. It's these like 9-year-olds that I met earlier in the day.
That's awesome story.
And like this is the like the peak of my
No, I think that story beats the B story.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
Oh,
I
definitely.
didn't
That's a great story.
I didn't get stung or anything, and I've got a handful of fans, like
Yeah.
international fans, so I feel good about myself.
That's great, great. So I'm gonna go back to our chat. See, Matt. Matt, can you tell us if we have more questions or comments?
A couple, yeah, a couple. One from Pepper that is, who do you see holds the decision-making power in judo rule changes? Is it the IGF, the Kodokan, or a collaboration of bodies? And what do you think is the ultimate goal behind those rule changes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I should say that first of all, I'm not quite qualified to know that exactly, because I'm not involved in any of those conversations really. But I am sure that the decisions that are made are, and we should be happy about this, they're a really close collaboration between the IJF and the Kodokan. So especially, I don't know how it has been in previous years, but I know in the most recent years, there's a close collaboration that has a lot to do with the IJF Academy and the way that that's presented, both in theory and in the practical sessions. But the IJF values very much the opinions and the expertise of the Kodokan on what's important about judo, and going down to like the technical details of how techniques should be applied, and what is sensible when it comes to modifying the rules, and making sure that the motivations there are in the right place, whether making sure that we've got the athletes in mind, and that any changes that are going to be made are going to have the outcome that you're after, and not unintended consequences that could be worse than not having changed the rule at all. And those are difficult things to do. Now, the motivation that I'm talking about is something that I think I mentioned, or at least alluded to before, and that's really just to allow players to do judo while and not be boring for the public who's watching it. And that is just really difficult. All the grip fighting has become so sophisticated, that if you just leave the players to the wild, then a lot of times nothing will happen at all. So you have to introduce ways to control that, and to help them with that. And sometimes that's in the form of penalties, and that maybe has the right effect, and maybe it has an effect that you don't want. And I feel very confident that the motivation is in the right place, and that that the people who are making those decisions, like I said, it's the IGF directors and the Kodokan, are the right people to make those decisions. I should also say that the head referee directors, and this is also refreshing, they're not referees. They are former world and Olympic champions who know judo better than anyone. Our head referee director, Mr. Laskow, was the first ever non-Japanese shidoing, or like instructor, for the Kodokan. This is an amazing thing, and we can feel confident that any rule changes that might come up, next year or at any time, that they're coming from the right place and from people who know what they're talking about and are receptive to the input and the ideas from coaches who also care, of course, deeply, and that the referee directors in the Kodokan, that they care about the things that we care about. So I feel confident about all of that, and otherwise I'm just totally unqualified to comment on any specifics, because I just don't know anything, and that's okay. That's just not part of my it's a good conversation to have, like, we can talk about what the rules are, and we can talk about like what they should be, and this is an opinion that anyone can have, and it's exciting to hear feedback from anyone, but it's important to keep those things separate, because once the decision comes and we're told, here's what the rules are, then our job as referees is not to argue and say, well, it should be this, or shouldn't be that, or should be that. It's really about trying to implement that vision, and trust that it's coming from the right place.
Yeah, well put, Brian. Well put. And thanks for mentioning Mr. Laskow being the first shidoin, non-Japanese shidoin in Kodokan. There is a video interview on YouTube where he's being interviewed about the process, about his making whatever he is right now. So I'll share it. I'll share the link later with this group, but I think it's a very good interview to watch.
I agree. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to move on and talk about, obviously you're incredibly busy between the job, family, and IGF events, but you do have responsibilities to PJC and USA Judo. How do you manage that? How do you balance those responsibilities?
And this is hard. This is like but when you're a national referee, if what we would do, I mean, I'm saying you and I, we essentially did everything at the same time, and we were doing the same events, and came up precisely together, right? So we did, I don't know how many national events a year, like 8 or something, I don't know, like traveling around the country and doing at least the big 4, like our senior nationals, the President's Cup, the Scholastics, which is now I think the junior the youth nationals, and then Junior Olympics, and I also throw in like the Junior Open, which is now the US Open.
Right.
So this was always a lot, and if it were up to me, I would still do those, but it's just not possible to do all the IGF events right now, and also do all of those. So I essentially do 2 events. I'll do, I think this year I did the senior nationals. I'll do at least 1 more, but unfortunately I'm not able to do more than that. I do all of our local events, whatever, which is all of them, which is just, they're all down the street within an hour or 2. But our national events, unfortunately, that's what I'm limited to. And this is the same goes for Pan American events, where we do have an obligation and a responsibility to our continental, our confederation. And so I go at least once or twice a year to a Pan American event, but it's naturally going to be fewer events than when you don't also have the responsibilities in the IGF Tour. So I do what I can there, but it's not as much as it was before, and hopefully afterwards, once the time comes and I'm not actively working on the tour, then I'll be able to contribute more again to the USA Judo and Pan America.
Right. Yeah. I can appreciate the difficulties with this, but you know what? We're here, we're waiting. So get all that knowledge,
Yeah.
bring it back. So, you know, it's always almost all referees compete for, you know, refereeing spot in the finals. Talk to us on the tour. Like, what is that like? Is that how fierce is that competition?
Yeah. It it doesn't feel like a competition. I know that it is. Like essentially, I mean, this is something that is explicitly stated that you know the referee selected for the final block, the bronze medal and the gold medal matches, they will be the best referees of that day. You know, this is what is said out loud to the world, and I think that's a reasonable policy. And that's so what it means is if you do very well and you don't make mistakes, and you, like I mentioned before, you handle maybe difficult situations in the right way, then you may very well have an opportunity for one of those. And if you don't, then you might be left off that list. And sometimes there just aren't enough, you know, medal matches for people. So sometimes you're left off the list, um, not for reasons that have not to do with your performance, and that's something you accept anyway. But so it does have to do with your own performance, and um, you there could be an argument that someone else doing poorly will give you a more of an opportunity, but I can't imagine that anyone thinks about it that way. You can't think about it that way.
Mm.
It's really about your own performance, and if you make a mistake that you if I make a mistake that I feel might have cost me an opportunity in a medal match, that's totally on me. But it has nothing to do with the other people and who
So it's
maybe
about doing your best.
yeah, it really is. So I mean, competition is maybe it's cliche, it's right to say, but it's a competition against yourself. I mean, you are
Yeah, it's the toughest competition.
no, it really is. But all the referees who you are working with, I mean, they want you to succeed. I mean, nobody wants any referee to fail, because it's not like a competition between judo athletes where, like, if I'm a judo athlete, I want the other person to lose because I want, like, them losing means that I win, right?
Right.
This
That's
is
the
a
only way.
reasonable. That's like the only reasonable attitude to have if you're fighting. But with new referees,
This
you
is more
can't have
complex.
that. It really is more complex in making. And for anyone to make a mistake, it means that somebody is suffering in some way, right? And that we're not doing our job as a team. So no one wishes that. And like we'll do everyone. I feel that everyone does whatever they can to support each other and to make sure that everyone has that opportunity. And you get selected, you don't get selected. Those are secondary things, but it's really, at least at the moment, I don't feel, it doesn't feel like a competition.
Right. Well, yeah, great. Yeah, sometimes the feelings are, it's really, like you said, you really need to figure out how to do your best
Mm.
and stop thinking about, who's better you're gonna be. Um, and I think that's where the real pressure is, right? Your greatest critic is yourself.
Yeah.
So we're coming to an end, but I'm hoping we'll have some extra minutes
Sure.
at the end.
Yeah.
I wanted to put some questions, like two questions together for you.
Yeah.
It's sort of a reflection question, right? You talked about your journey from coming up from scratch, getting to a national referee, PJC, IGF Tour Referee. First question is, if you were to do it, if you were to do this all again, what would you do differently? As well as if anybody would ask you, some aspiring young referees would ask you for your word of wisdom, what would that be?
Mm. Of course, doing things differently, I think we can all, find things that we will regret or wish we had handled better. Um, those more so than that, I think if I think about it in terms of, like, I wish that it would have been nice if um, in judo in general, maybe if I had made it more a priority to be like more of an elite athlete, then that would have been interesting. It would have been like, who knows what that would have meant, but like I said, I never actually competed as on the stage that I'm now in charge of officiating. So that would have been nice if, but that maybe that would have been impossible, even given my greatest efforts and having done it earlier or something like that. The same goes for refereeing. I mean, there are explicit age limits on the thing, so I think the earlier you start, the more opportunities you'll have. So my first was 17 years ago. And so, I mean, if I had started earlier, then that would have, opened up more opportunities. But in general, I have, I'm very pleased, of course, with the opportunities that I've been given. So I certainly can't complain about that.
Right.
Words of wisdom, I don't think I have, again, I'm not really qualified to be considered wise about anything, but
No, you are. Stop.
Really, I think
make it real for them. Like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the things that work for me is just try to enjoy the judo. Don't worry about stuff like at any whatever level you're working at, you're going to be evaluated by somebody, and there's somebody whose job it is to give you a rating of some kind, and that's going to have some effect on your future opportunities, and that can easily bog people down if that's what you're worried about. Whereas I find if you just try to enjoy it, try to forget that side of it, then your performance will come, and the performance will be better in every way. And just don't worry about the people who are taking notes and whose job it is to evaluate for any particular event. I found that the times where I've performed worst is sometimes when that has sort of creeped into my psyche, and I've noticed that where I don't like to think about that, and something like I've done I think a good job of just not caring about that part of it over the years, but sometimes it's crept in, and when it does, it doesn't, the effect is not positive ever. So try to keep that out if you can. I think
that's a very good advice, and I think it goes for every experience level.
Yeah, I think it ties into like these attitudes you have to have that are like seemingly contradictory and at odds with each other. And that's one, you have to, and I mean with respect to like just not caring about the people who are evaluating you, at least in that moment. Like, but one attitude you have to have then is this like 100% confidence at that moment that you're in what you're evaluating and what you're seeing, and you have to give confidence to the athletes and to their coaches and to the audience that you're going to protect the athletes. You're going to you're watching it in the right way, that you're going to keep them safe, and you're going to give them every opportunity to do the judo. You have to have that confidence, or else you will just crumble, right? But at the same time, you have to have this other like seemingly contradictory attitude of like 100% flexibility. And this is like in a very judo sense, where you can just like change your mind as soon as you get better information. And often that information comes in the form of, the voice in your earpiece saying, no, it's not a 190 in there. That was an Ippon, or like, look, there's something happening here that you don't recognize. And being able to change that immediately without, any difficulty. So that flexibility, and it also might come, and often comes, in the form of a like stern talking to, after a match, or between matches, when I say, look, what are you doing here? You need to look at it this way, and here's how to see it. And you have to be able to adapt to this immediately. And so like that confidence that you have to have, and combined with like the flexibility to change, is not trivial, I think. I mean, you can have like one or the other, and those might come easier, individually, but having those together takes some practice, and at least being aware. I think that's
right. Well, this was amazing. I have so much to be thankful and grateful for, Brian. ladies and gentlemen, here you have Brian Toth. He's
Oh, thank you.
7 times world tour judo referee, 3 times IPSA Grand Prix referee, Pan American Games 2023, University Games 2023, and IPSA Pan American referee for 2022. It is my great pleasure to have done this podcast with you, Brian. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so grateful to spend this truly amazing time with you. And I will be remiss if I don't say, you ready for it? Happy birthday, Brian.
Happy
So
birthday.
don't hang up, people. We have a surprise here. So give me 1 second. We need to share a surprise. I hope you can see the screen.
Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Awesome. Okay. That's great.
Dear
Thank
Brian,
you.
happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
my friend,
Honestly,
my brother. I wish you best. I wish the best health to you, your family, your incredible journey. I'm
thank you.
immensely proud of you. I can't wait to see you in LA 2028. It will be so amazing, and I'm so proud to call you my brother, my judo brother, my friend. It's beyond. Every time I see you, and the amount that you bring back to us and we learn from you is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saro. It's my pleasure indeed. And, you know, I want to say to everyone here a big thanks and recognition of what Saro has done here, and he's, you know, come together with little notice to put this together for me and for us, and I really appreciate this. It's always, you know, of course, a pleasure, and you're my, you know, dear friend and brother, and I appreciate this. Now, I appreciate all of you coming together, and of course, you know, coming out, or rather, you know, staying in on a Friday night when, you know, of course, there's nothing better to do than just like sit at the computer. I really appreciate everyone coming and supporting and this, and of course, you know, many of you have been very kind and generous with donating, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's, you know, I'm beyond words for, you know, how much that helps and how much, you know, that means to me. Thank you very much. That's all.
Absolutely. We have some raised hands, but before we go to them, I do want to shout out to Matt Mildenholt. Thank you so much for monitoring the chat and bringing us the question. Matt, thank you so very much. I look forward to working with you more. Mr. Who has a Pepper Uno raised hand? Please go ahead. Pepper Uno, please go ahead. You are on mute. Okay. Okay. Any questions, Pepper Uno? I see you went off mute.
I didn't realize I had a hand. I was clapping. I just really want to congratulate Brian and glad and happy for his journey and what he's accomplished to this point in time. Congratulations,
Awesome.
Brian.
Awesome. Of course. Congratulations, Brian.
Right.
All right. Anybody wants to ask anything, make a comment, please, while we have Brian, because in 2-3 days, he's gone. All right, Brian, best of luck in Paris.
Thank you all. No,
you know that we all here for you, support, absolute, pray for you. You're going to be very, very successful. And we're going to be incredibly. We already are incredibly proud of you, Brian. Looking forward to meeting you soon.
Well, thanks, Saro. I feel that. And again, I feel all of your support. And I mean, I will take all of you with me when I'm there. So thank you all.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for supporting. I look forward to having more of this coming up. And do please send me your feedback. We try to make this much better next time, but I think it was excellent. Thank you, Brian, so much. Everybody, have a good night. Wonderful Friday night. Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you.